Almost 3 years ago now, I made a couple videos talking about a YouTuber whose house had been firebombed. The YouTuber's name is friendlyjordies, and he was very outspoken about corruption, calling out bad actors in the local government, and for all of this, his house was targeted in a firebombing. And actually, the fucking stooge that was in charge of this, the mysterious boogeyman, actually went for the double scoop on the firebombing. So they started by firebombing friendlyjordies' neighbor, thinking that it was his house. Then when they realized they got the wrong house, he came back to firebomb friendlyjordies' house. And luckily, no one died in this, but the intention was pretty clear, either to scare or kill friendlyjordies. And now, almost 3 years later, there is someone who has been arrested for this.
Some not-so-breaking news. One of the guys that firebombed my house back in 2022 has been sentenced to 5 years in prison. Now, I'm grateful to the judge, the arson squad, and the financial crimes unit for all their hard work in securing this little bit of justice. That was a Herculean slog for the investigators to get it to that point at all, but this is hardly a definite end to this saga, and there are a few things that really need to be said in wake of this conviction.
The man who was arrested and now facing 5 years in the slammer is an associate of a well-known crime family in the area. His name is Tuffy, or Toofy, Goofy, whatever the fuck it is, however you say his name. He's 39 years old and they're describing it as a professional attack on a journalist. But don't worry, he's not a monster. He has a lot of remorse here. He feels really bad about it. He even made an apology video for it. So he is clearly feeling a lot of sorrow for his misdeeds, no doubt. In a video he sent from prison, he said, "I would just like to apologize from the bottom of my heart." Aww. Alright. Not guilty. Free this man. He clearly feels bad about firebombing two people's homes. He's no longer a threat. He's seen the error of his ways. That is a touching sentiment. He went on to say that he believed in God and said he was over his life of crime after spending so much of his 20s and 30s behind bars. Quote, "I'd rather die than return back to jail," he said. He's turning a new leaf. You can clearly see it here. I mean, it's just an honest mistake. Who hasn't accidentally firebombed two people's homes after being paid to throw those firebombs in the first place? It could happen to anybody. And this is a guy who clearly recognizes that these evil deeds are best left in the past. And it's crazy that he's only getting 5 years, by the way. He is a career criminal, and he's still getting 5 years after firebombing two people's homes, which is literally like attempted murder. At least it should be. That was the whole goal. At least one of the goals, either to have friendlyjordies fear for his life or take his life here in the firebombing attack. It's just crazy that he's only getting 5 years. Maybe that apology really did weigh heavy on the heart of the judge.
The person convicted of the firebombing is a man by the name of Tufi Jr. Tuisi Alua. I don't know if I'm saying that name correctly, and frankly, I don't care. I've never met Tufi Jr. I've never mentioned him in videos before. In fact, before he was charged, I'd never even heard of his name, nor do I hope to hear it ever again. It does, however, open a big question, a question which was not satisfactorily answered in court, and perhaps even more shamefully, not examined by most of the media. Why would a man with no connection to me whatsoever go to the effort of stealing a Mercedes, cloning number plates, surveilling my house, and then setting that house on fire?
As friendlyjordies points out here, it's very interesting that the judge recognizes this as a professional attack, a coordinated attack here on friendlyjordies. They even call him the muscle. That's what he was hired to do. Yet, at no point do they try and inquire as to who hired him and why. What were his motives? Why would someone whom Jordy has never heard of, never mentioned at all, go through so much effort to firebomb his fucking house? That's awfully strange, right? Isn't that a little weird? They fully recognize that this was a paid, planned attack on friendlyjordies, yet don't bother to try and uncover who planned and paid for this attack. It wasn't just some random act of violence where this guy just had two firebombs sitting on his passenger seat from, last Halloween where he won his, the pyro from TF2 or something, and he decided, all right, I'll just throw these two firebombs over here. This was clearly a planned attack, and they recognize that, yet don't even give the slightest smidgen of effort to try and figure out who's behind it. That definitely smells a bit fishy.
I think I know the answer. I'd wager some prominent defamation lawyers, property developers, and politicians also know the answer. There were some unsurprisingly cowardly and oblique hints of an answer in the ABC article about the conviction, an article which refers to me as an internet personality. Mr. Shanks, who uses the moniker friendlyjordies online, had mentioned the Alameddine crime network in a video 2 months before his home was set alight. Just mention the Alameddines. A lot of people mention the Alameddines, Anton. The Alameddine crime network might be one of the most prolific gangs in this nation's history. They're nightly news. Some people bank their entire journalistic careers on talking about the Alameddines. They don't get their houses burnt down. How characteristically low from the ABC, especially when even the judge labelled the firebombing as, quote, a professional attack on a journalist. Anton here acts as if it was a coincidence after reading out a BuzzFeed article on a stream.
I found this fascinating. What Jordies is mentioning here is that some journalists, like the one he's pointing out, are making the insinuation that because Jordies has mentioned the Alameddine crime family before, prior to his house being set ablaze, that maybe it's not a coinky-dink. Maybe the two are related. But Jordies hits him with the counterpoint here. He gets him with the Uno reverse with some very basic logic that the Alameddine crime family is one of the most infamous in the area, talked about daily as a piece of nightly news, where tons of journalists make their whole career solely around reporting on the Alameddine crime family, and yet none of them seem to be getting fucking napalm striked here like Jordies was. So it's a pretty weak insinuation to make that doesn't pass the smell test, especially because it's not like that's all friendlyjordies talks about is the Alameddine crime family or anything like that.
This is not at all to excuse Toofy Jr. He tried to kill someone. He burnt down a house with no regard for not only the other potential occupants, but neighbours, which were the elderly, and for all he knew, could have been children. Even worse, because his motives are murky and seemingly transactional, he seems to have just been waved away with he was just the hired muscle. He tried to kill people. He burnt down a house. Things are a little bit scary in New South Wales if you ask me. At this point, you can order a firebombing, not only not get caught, but the muscle who does get caught gets about the same time as it takes to do a bachelor's degree.
The guy responsible for double-fisting firebombs that could have killed multiple people is getting an extremely light, soft sentence of just 5 years, which is basically just the amount of time between Stranger Things seasons. And not only is he getting a light sentence, but the people that hired him, that they openly are saying that he was the muscle. So they recognize he was the muscle for someone, but the people that he is the muscle for, they're not even bothering to try and investigate and find out the identity of. They're just like, oh yeah, he was the muscle, and that's it. That's as far as we're gonna go. It's just so blatant. It's so obvious. It's so fucked.
Pretty good risk to reward ratio, if you ask me. Over the past few years, I've faced multiple different criminal investigations and charges over what apparently in New South Wales is a far more serious crime, making YouTube videos. I don't think it's hyperbole to say that there were far more investigative and legal resources thrown at botched attempts to punish me than there were at punishing the firebombers.
If you followed friendlyjordies at all for any length of time, you are probably familiar with the fucking ringer they have put this man through over the years. The justice system over there is trying so hard to bend them over their knee and spank his cheeks red every chance they get for even the slightest things. They will go to extremes for him, all because he posts videos online talking about corruption. Meanwhile, a firebomber who firebombed 2 houses, a career criminal as well, by the way, so he has a history too, gets significantly less resources put into that investigation. It's fucking crazy.
How can a man be charged and sentenced to 5 years in prison for a firebombing and the courts get to know nothing about his motives?
No, they know everything that needs to be known about his motive. He was hired to do it. He was the muscle. Hired by who? Cares. Who cares? They don't give a fuck. Just gonna send him to jail for just a little brief period of time here and just let this whole thing quietly die down so that way people don't ask too many questions about this whole firebombing, hoopla, that kind of thing. Because there's no need to dig any deeper on who might have paid for this kind of thing to happen. You know, it's just, he was the muscle. Come on, let's move on.
Why certain politicians like Rose Jackson, who originally condemned the firebombing, albeit in the most performative Twitter-approved template, that not only was mostly about her and how awesome she thinks she is, she also just had to add, right after I was nearly killed, that I'm, quote, way off and gross. I'll tell you what I think is way off, Rose. Hanging out with and propping up a development company which, again, shares the name of the video I was forced to remove due to death threats, and doing so knowingly. You know. That's what I think is Gross, you self-aggrandizing transactional party machine cog.
Yeah, over there, Jordies has got a lot of very powerful enemies. I've made a couple videos talking about Jordies and everything that has gone on recently. It is not an overstatement to say that he literally does put his life on the line for the journalism that he does. And it's not just him, he does have a team as well that takes the same risk. They have some very powerful enemies over there. And it is very clear that they are willing to go to extreme lengths to silence Jordies and his team. Keep in mind, the firebombing attack, they didn't know Jordies wasn't home. They had no idea. They also didn't know about the neighbors' whereabouts if they were home. That very well could have ended with bodies. Just corpses. Charred corpses from this hired muscle coming out and firebombing these two houses. All to silence Jordies and his team for their reporting on the blatant corruption over there.
Why do the Alamedines, an organised crime gang, give so much access to certain ABC journalists? Why is the ABC so ardent in defending these certain journalists? And why isn't anyone able to get enough evidence to bring whoever ordered the firebombing into a courtroom? I'll tell you, there's some very strange things happening in New South Wales.
Very strange things indeed going on over there. I'm happy to at least see that someone was arrested in connection to the firebombing. That's good. 5 years is kind of laughable considering the crime. But I mean, I guess at least there was some semblance of, like, you know, catching the bad guys here to a certain extent. But there is a lot of work to be done. I feel like there was definitely a lot more that should have come from this. And hopefully it will. Hopefully there will be more that comes from this, God willing. Because holy shit, it is unhinged. Anyways, wishing the best for Friendly Jordies here. Hopefully he and his team can stay safe. And just wanted to give you the update. That's about it. See ya.